Good evening. Welcome into the Philadelphia Soul official pregame show. It's live here on Bob Long Sports with Bob Long and Rob Stott alongside the Philadelphia Soul at 10-1 on the year, Rob. Return coming off a loss. We've talked about it a lot this year, and it's a team that had an opportunity to go undefeated over the course of this season, but unfortunately for this team, it was a trip down to Baltimore that ended up being the culprit and the first loss of the season. A 49-42 loss against a tough team. Shane Carden and co. have played the Soul tough this year. It was a fumbled snap in the last minute of the game here in Philadelphia that was the difference for the Soul. And this time a fourth quarter turnover by Dan Raudeball on the road was the difference. Now, Rob, you flip the script. You come back home, your penultimate home game of the regular season, and you have a team in Washington, only 1-9 on the year, so an opportunity to get right quick.
Yeah, it's been a month for this. It's crazy. We've been out 4 weeks here since the last time we got to see the Soul at home. But, you know, like you said, it was a tough loss on the road. You know, a team that you kind of had that feeling. You wanted them to go that undefeated season, but, you know, we were talking about it before the show. It's kind of nice to get that loss out. You know, you want to get it out of your system. There's only a few games left in the season, and you got to start thinking about the playoffs, which the Soul have a chance tonight to clinch home field throughout. But, you know, it's a chance to come home and play a Washington team, like you said, 1-9, but not a slouchy Washington team. You know, this Soul team has only been held under 50 points 3 times this year, twice against Washington. So it's a team that plays, you know, that the record might not really tell you the full story about how tough they can play this Soul team. So it's going to be a good one.
A big reason why this Washington team is giving teams problems defensively, that's Tracy Belton, the guy that went from the Soul last year, was the AFL Defensive Player of the Year in the 2016 campaign, and now moved to Washington, has been a stalwart in the defensive backfield for the Valor, and just last game against Tampa Bay became only the 7th player in arena football history to hit the 50 interception mark. The guy's a ball hawk, Rob, and he's able to stay with these very talented receivers that we have over the course of this league. Joe Hills comes into town against Washington. Tracy Belton's going to be guarding him. Darius Money Reynolds or Sean Kalinamoku, you know, Tracy Belton's going to be guarding one of those two guys, right? So it's very, I guess, impressive and very, very important for this Valor team.
Yeah,
to have a guy like him in the backfield.
And, I mean, you think back to last season, we knew what it was like to have a guy like that in the backfield. He could be a difference maker for the Soul. Now it's interesting to see him go to Washington. It's his first trip home, if you will, since winning the Arena Bowl. So it's going to be a tough one. These guys know each other. They played together all last season, had a great year last year. I'm sure they grew close. So now to see him on the other side of the field and you're going up against them, it's maybe some emotions in there, but, you know, you got to set those aside when the first snap happens, and it's game time. So we'll see what it's like, because I would love to see that matchup, Belton and D-Money, sort of what that you think about some of the best matchups in this league, and that's got to be one of them. That's right up there at the top. So Money, you know, leading the league, tied for the league lead in touchdowns this year at 30, and Belton, you know, one of the top D-backs in the league. So you're looking for a good one tonight.
And even amidst those games where the Soul struggled against Washington in terms of points scored, this is still, as of this week, the top-rated offense in the league in terms of points scored, Rob. So the Soul team, very important that they get out to a good start, because you don't want that loss to languish and then to build. And that's really what you want to avoid here. Philadelphia Soul, we mentioned the struggles against the Washington Valor team. Washington has only won one game on the season, Rob. It was the opening game in week number 1. But as I think you'll tell us here, that's not very indicative of this team. A 4-point loss last week against the number 2 team in all the Arena Football League, the Tampa Bay Storm. And that forced it was a last-second touchdown score, final seconds by the Tampa Bay Storm, and a very, very calm, cool, and collected veteran team in Tampa. But this is a 1-8 team at the time in Washington, Rob, that took them to the brink.
Yeah, I mean, you run through their schedule, and I'm counting of those 9 losses, there's 5 that could have easily have gone the other way. They're one-possession games. You got an 8-point loss, a 5-point loss, a 1-point loss to this Seoul team here only a couple weeks ago. So it kind of reminds me of the Eagles last year. There were so many close games that you felt like really came down to one play or 2 plays throughout the course of the game, and you could have a completely different looking record for Washington. So it was nice for them to get that first win of the season in the first week. You kind of they were a fresh team, brand new to this league, so you start off on the right foot. But it goes to show, it's a small league, but the AFL, you gotta step up that game every week, or you can find yourself very easily, with all these points that get put up in a situation where you're 1-9 and really struggling to find your ground here, not 10 weeks into the season, or 10 games into the season, I should say. So, you can't. That like I said at the top, that record doesn't really speak to what this Valor team is. So the Soul, you can't take them lightly. So it's going to be a good one, and you just hope that like you said, Radaball and the crew come out hot. They don't sort of ease their way into this game. So just another week in the AFL.
Just another week. You mentioned 1 point and 1 possession games. The Soul have been on the beneficiary side of a lot of those types of games. Cleveland, certainly remember the Baltimore game that was here in Philadelphia. We mentioned that. They've been back and forth. The first game at Amalie Arena down there in Tampa Bay was very close. So this loss against Baltimore that we'll touch back on once again, it was in many ways a long time coming. And we asked the question for about 8 weeks, Rob. Was the Soul team just coming out a little flat in that they continue to play these games close, or is that just what the league is? Is the league that competitively balanced that even though there's that one team with the 10 and now 1 record, that was, I guess, just more of 1 possession here, 1 possession there going the right way? Or are the Soul much more supremely talented than the rest? And I'll get your answer on that in a second, but it was a Varma Sony interception for the Baltimore Brigade that was the difference against the Soul. Led to another score midway through the fourth quarter by the Brigade and went up 2 possessions at that point. The Soul were able to score, elicited an interception from Shane Carden with a minute to play, but then a big-time shutdown on 4 downs by the Baltimore Brigade, and that gave them the victory over the Soul. So what do you think? We've seen enough of the season now. We're 11-plus games in, about 13 or 14 weeks into the season. Is this a competitively balanced league with the facade of a 10-1 team up top, or are the Soul that much more talented than, say, those at the bottom?
So, trick question, because
that's all the only questions I ask.
So I think I think it is a balanced league to an extent. You see, it's tough. It's kind of tough to argue that when you have a team that is 10-1 and a team on the other end that's 1-9. But there's a reason the Soul won the Arena Bowl last year. They had a lot of talent on that team, and they brought a lot of that talent back this year. So it's not a mistake that they're 10-1. I think going into last week they might have been, and actually, like you said, we've seen it sort of kind of building over the past few weeks of this season. The Soul kind of got into a rhythm. Maybe they let their guard down a little bit. They have a history going back to last year watching them. They get off the slow starts, and last year it came back to bite them a bit more than we've seen this year. This year, it was only last week that it bit them. So they're 1 loss of the season. So I do think, it is a balanced league because you see a Washington team that can have 1-point games against the Soul that are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum from a record perspective. But the talent does tend to rise to the top. The cream does rise, and that's what we have with the Soul. So I think while there seems to be a difference in the record, I wouldn't let that really determine what the competitive balance is of this league. So I think it's a lot better than what those records led on.
There's a gentleman playing for the Washington Valor. You talk about the cream rising to the top and the ability to impact a football game. Those of you college football fans out there are going to recognize this name. The name is Greg Carr, a tight end, now serving as a wide receiver for this Washington Valor team. He went to Florida State University, and Rob, he tore up the ACC. 5th all-time in touchdown receptions at Florida State University. 5th all-time in receptions at Florida State University. And here we have him here at the Wells Fargo Center playing for Washington. An absolutely phenomenal collegiate career. And in his freshman year, he tied Heath Miller, previously of the University of Virginia, for the all-time touchdowns record for a freshman. Was second-team All-ACC that year, third-team freshman All-American, and then was a second-team All-ACC his sophomore year. What a talent to have here. Just a third-year player in arena football, but what a talent to see here at the Wells Fargo Center in an Arena League matchup.
It's crazy. You know, you kind of wonder, the NFL is a league where you got to be on the top of your game every week, so you kind of wonder how a talent like that could kind of find his way, not onto a practice squad or something, but, he finds his way to the AFL. He can hone his craft here, maybe get noticed by one of those 32 teams someday, but it's cool to see. So timing-wise, if I think back, he's 3 years in this league. Would that put him on a Jameis Winston? Or is that too recent? Would he have played with Mr. Winston?
He could have played with Jameis Winston, yes. I forget exactly how that was, because remember, Jameis only played for 2 years.
2 years.
Right, because of his because he redshirted the first year and then played the 2 years, obviously, the national championship year, and then the year where they lost to Oregon in the 2 versus 3, the first college football playoff. And so, Greg was certainly in that area.
We could have a national champion on the field tonight, college football national champion. That's pretty cool.
I'm very excited to see Greg. And another thing I think we're both excited about is to see what James Romaine can do against him. And James Romaine, he's, not the largest gentleman in the world, but I tell you, he is very strong. He's got a ball-hawking attitude. And if you're running a lazy route, he's going to jump you. 4 interceptions, tied for the league lead with, you guessed it, Tracy Belton on the other side with the Washington Valor, and has 62.5 tackles on the year. So James Romaine, I wouldn't say without a doubt, because Dwayne Hollis has had another great campaign, but without a doubt those two have been 2 phenomenal assets for the Soul this year and in their defensive capacity.
You think about it, to make another NFL-esque comparison, this Soul secondary last year was probably as close as you can get from the AFL to the NFL in terms of talking about a Legion of Boom. I mean, they were pretty impressive, and it's kind of like one of those members left, but it's just the next man up, and it seems to be that this Soul secondary it's just chock full of talent. So you think about a Byron Maxwell leaving. Now I'm not going to say that Tracy Belton is Byron Maxwell, and I don't know who that hurts more or who that's more in offense of, but it's kind of that situation where one of those members leaves, and the Soul are still doing their thing with their secondary, keeping teams at a pretty impressively low scoring rate. So it's just cool to see Belton come back to Philly, but I still think I take this Soul secondary over Tracy Belton any day.
Wow. Well, what if you had him in the middle there? I mean, you had these two guys. Romaine wasn't playing the same role he was this year. He wasn't doing that last year, so that's certainly to your point. And he's come out and shown exactly why he is a top-tier Arena Football League caliber player. And you mentioned LOB, Legion of Boom. What about Joe Gooseby and Bo Bell in the middle as well, the guys that can lay the boom and the guys that really do their job in the Mac and Jack linebacker positions. Of course, Jake Metz, we mentioned he is left for greener pastures, signed with the Buffalo Bills. And in his place, we've had phenomenal players, Sean Daniels, Justin Lawrence, at the defensive end and nose guard position respectively. They've had great years in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. You remember, that's without Teddy Jennings as well, who was a top-tier guy for really the first 3 quarters of last season. So in some ways a facelift, but like you said earlier in the telecast, Rob, a lot of familiar faces back. It's that culture, it's that level of talent that has remained, and a reason why the Philadelphia Soul are 10-1 on the year.
So Bernie, I'm going to butcher your last name, Nowatarski. There's your defensive backs coach. And I'm guessing, Clint's obviously got the offensive side. So Phil Phil Bogle might be more of a defensive mind. In that sense, he's listed here as assistant head coach. But I'm guessing, so it goes.
He does work with the O-line, I believe, as well.
Yeah, so it goes to Bogle and Nowatarski. I'm sure those guys are, doing their thing with this defense and just making sure that when you lose that kind of talent, the rest of the team can step up, fill those roles, and continue to be what's been one of the better defenses in this league. So just an impressive job all around by the players, coaches, and just everyone on this whole staff.
Rob, we wanted to talk about this next issue as we moved into the show, and you spent some time in Washington, D.C., living with your now wife, and you were very, I would say, aware of the impact of this next guy we're going to talk about on Washington, D.C. sports, and that's Ted Leonsis. Ted Leonsis, the owner of certainly the Washington Wizards and the Washington Capitals, really kind of the Verizon Center in general, has a nice hold on all the teams that play in that building.
Can't forget the Mystics.
Of course not. Of course not. That's why I didn't say them initially. But the Mystics as well. And so now Ted, in conjunction with the Arena Football League, founded the Washington Valor, and then when unfortunately some of the teams out west, Portland, Arizona, decided to go elsewhere, Portland folding, Arizona to another Arena League team, Jacksonville, Orlando, they are no longer. There were already plans to start the Washington Valor, but knowing that they certainly could use more franchises, Leonsis steps up, says, I'll take on another team, I'll put them in Baltimore, and now we're going to have a 5-team lead, the Baltimore Brigade, who defeated the Philadelphia Soul last week. But, Rob, I want to get your perspective on what Ted has done for Washington, D.C. sports, what the Valor adds to that area, and then, of course, what it means to the Arena Football League for him to step up and take on a second team.
Before I even touch on Ted, I'm going to go back to our talk with Scott Butera last year when he was talking about, we asked him kind of point blank and pretty bluntly, about the state of the league. And he told us that his plan, he had done some reorgs in the past that was part of his history as a businessman. So he knew what sort of the future, what the future held for the Arena Football League before, it was going to get better. It was always going to get a little bit worse. And his point that he made last year was that he wanted business minds involved with this league. People that could run teams that had that management experience. And he went ahead this year and found probably the best out there in all of sports. There's plenty of good names, but if you talk about someone that has the business acumen, knows how to run franchises, thinks about it more from a business perspective than just someone that is out there having fun, and no slight against Magic Johnson, he seems more of someone like that's into the idea of sports than running a business. Leonsis is a guy that, beyond owning, 3 teams in Washington before this year, he's involved with the community. He's a very big name down there, is very smart with what he does. So he's someone that means a lot to that community. And I think back to earlier this year, I was watching an Arena League game in Baltimore. He's there with his son talking about what it meant to him to get involved with this league. And he was all for it. He was excited by the chance to do this. And I think it's a big profile boost for the Arena Football League to have a guy like Leonsis involved. It's huge, and I mean, it should be something that attracts other potential owners to want to get involved in this league as well. Because if you're going to have a name like Ted Leonsis involved, why not? I mean, that kind of solidifies, in my opinion, the future of the Arena Football League as a league that has a future.
And certainly great atmospheres here in Philadelphia as well. Those that Leonsis is trying to create and has created in Washington. That town has rallied around this Valor team, even though it's been a little bit of a slow start. In some ways, you cheer for a team like the Valor to do well because the new names in town, you want the fans to get up and be, very, very engaged in what's going on. And I think you've seen, issues even with a team here in Philadelphia, the Soul, that came in, tried to bring on a new fan base, the soccer fan base of Philadelphia, but really 2 playoff appearances and no wins. That's kind of getting stale to some. I very much enjoy the product. We at BLS do a lot of work with the Soul and appreciate the relationship. But sometimes you see the stands start to become a little emptier for a team that doesn't have long-term success, especially if it doesn't have that historical base, like a 76ers team, like a Boston Celtics, etc. And so, I think it's very important for Washington, the Valor, and the Brigade to do well and to create atmospheres like this. I mean, you look at what's going on behind us here. The fans, soulmates are here, a big part of the action here in Philadelphia, and certainly the fan base as well. And a great, we'll see a great crowd here for this game, and this is a great pregame atmosphere. It'll be this way the whole game.
One more point I want to make about Leonsis that I read a little bit ago. This is a guy. He's gotten in on the ground floor of products at a time when they were about to take off. So if you think back to when he bought,
give me an example.
The Capitals, 1999, very low point for that franchise. They were going nowhere quick. So you think now, fast forward 17 years, they had a little bit of luck. They got a franchise player in Alexander Ovechkin that was able to take them on, on just a completely opposite direction and rise very quickly. But Leonsis got involved with the Washington Capitals at a time, like I said, when they were potentially could have been left town easily, but got in on the ground floor and helped them rise. He's coming in at the AFL, it's kind of at its ground floor. So, if he's someone that he can see the future prospects for something, maybe he sees it for the AFL.
Well, then that's a big reason why he and Scott Butera get along. Scott, the same thing, the Keystone, the casino group there, he turned them around, and this was his next project. He's been great with us at the time, so we've been able to speak with him, and you get that sense that both those guys are very cerebral and can understand value when there is one, and in the Arena Football League certainly would qualify as that. Now, Rob, I want to pick your brain on the quarterback situation for the Washington Valor. This is a team that earlier in the year had Eric Meyer under center, played for the first approximately 5 games, and now is no longer on the roster. They've gone to Sean Brackett in the meantime. He's thrown for over 1,000 yards. He's thrown for 25 touchdowns. It's about 5 touchdowns per game. Not a bad thing for a guy that stepped in all at once. It's a 1-9 team, but Brackett has held up pretty well. And now he comes into a hostile atmosphere here in Philadelphia. What are your thoughts on the Washington quarterback situation?
Well, the switch was made. Washington had to do something. They're 1-4 the time they decided to switch from Meyer to Brackett. Just want to point out, Brackett's kind of a smart guy, Columbia educated.
Yes, sir.
So, he's figuring out his way. He doesn't have a win yet in the AFL, but he's putting up numbers that would lead you to believe that it's coming. Washington, as we've mentioned throughout this program, has been competitive in games. It's not like they're rolling over and giving these games away. They're fighting, and part of that is at least because of the work of Brackett and what he's been able to do with this offense in his few weeks under center. So he has experience in the league. He's not a new face. So you got to kind of, I think we're at the point now where Washington needs to stick with their guy. He doesn't have that win yet, but when it comes, I feel like it's going to be one of those things where it just starts rolling. So I think, it'll be interesting to see how he stacks up against Radaball tonight. A quarterback with a great pedigree in this league. So should be an interesting battle, and I look forward to watching it.
We'll take a break and come back with our final thoughts here from the Wells Fargo Center. It's the Philadelphia Soul official pregame show live on Bob Long Sports. Bob Long from Bob Long Sports here, and I want to urge all our listeners to visit our friends at Dunphy Ford in the Northeast.
Dunphy Ford has all the latest Ford models, trucks, SUVs, and sedans.
They also have a wide selection of used cars, trucks, and SUVs as well.
Owned by a LaSalle graduate and a proud sponsor of Explorers basketball, Dunphy Ford should be your first stop to buy or lease a new car.
Visit them at 7700 Frankfort Avenue in the Northeast or at dunphyford.com.
Check out the team of attorneys at Howland Hess O'Connell for all your estate planning needs. Located at 2444 Huntington Pike in Huntington Valley, Howland Hess O'Connell specializes in the drafting of wills, powers of attorney, and living wills. Partner Michael Cassidy, a LaSalle High School graduate and father of Michael Cassidy, Jr., class of 2009, is a proud alumnus and former quarterback for your LaSalle Explorers. Call today at 215-287-9292 or CUP Wawa.
Elmark Signs and Graphics, your choice for custom signs and design, has been servicing the Philadelphia area for over 30 years. From illuminated signs to vehicle wraps, Elmark Signs is your choice for all your custom signs needs. Elmark delivers high-quality signs with a courteous, helpful, and experienced staff. Visit them at elmarksigns.com or give them a call at 610-692-0525. Again, that's elmarksigns.com. 610-692-0525. Go check out their website for some great examples of signs that Elmark has created, and be sure to tell them that Bob Long Sports sent you. elmarksigns.com, your choice for custom signs and design.
Hi, this is Rob Stott with Bob Long Sports. BLS is the official host of the pregame show for the Philadelphia Soul. Be sure to tune in before every home game for featured interviews with head coach Clint Dolzell and quarterback Dan Radeball, as well as player profiles. We even get the opportunity to speak with AFL Commissioner Scott Butera.
Commissioner of the Arena Football League, Scott Butera on the line.
You do a tremendous job. Of all the, local broadcast teams, by far Philadelphia is the gold standard in our league. I wish they all could be like that because you really understand our game, you promote it well.
So be sure to tune in 30 minutes before every home game and check at Bob Long Sports on Twitter for programming updates.
This is Bob Long here, and you certainly know me from BLS, doing LaSalle College High School broadcasts, our weekly radio shows, and everything in between. However, during the 9 to 5, I am a commercial banker in the greater Philadelphia area. If your business is looking for financing or any other type of assistance, you can reach me at 215-328-2578. That's 215-328-2578. I've had experience in the energy industry, healthcare, public finance, as well as in manufacturing and leasing. Bob Long, a commercial banker in the greater Philadelphia market, helping your businesses grow. Bob Long from Bob Long Sports here, and I want to tell you about the good folks over at City Year Philadelphia. Every day, the dedicated young adults at City Year make an impact in high-need schools in Philadelphia and in 26 other cities across the country by serving students who need extra help to stay on track to graduate. If you are ages 17 to 24 and are interested in serving as a tutor, role model, or mentor, check out the inspiring stories at #MakeBetterHappen. City Year is currently accepting applicants for the next school year.
Welcome back. This is the Philadelphia Soul official pregame show. It's live here on Bob Long Sports with Bob Long and Rob Stott. A beautiful rendition of the national anthem. And now we're almost ready for kickoff between the Philadelphia Soul at 10-1 and the Washington Valor at 1-9. Now, the first playoff game, Rob, has just been announced for August the 12th at 7 o'clock right here at the Wells Fargo Center. With a win here tonight, the Philadelphia Soul would guarantee themselves home field advantage, not just for that semifinal game, but for Arena Bowl as well, which will take place on August the 22nd, a Saturday night. And how big would that be here for this city? They can take care of it tonight. If not, they got to sweat it out a little bit. One more game in between after a bye, and then it would be home here against Tampa Bay. Could you imagine that for the first overall seed? But still time to take care of business. They can do it here tonight.
Yeah, it'll be a big one. It'll be nice. Last year they went ahead and in a tough confine out there in Arizona and took care of Arena Bowl out there, but it'd be nice to bring it home. Have a championship game with some real meaning right here in this city. So, I'd love to see them take care of it tonight. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
What's your key to the game, Rob? No, don't cross your fingers. Tell us what this Soul team needs to do to win the game tonight.
It comes down to Dan Radeball. Get off to that hot start. I feel like we talk about this with him every week, but he's got to get off to that hot start. Don't ease your way into this game. I feel like he needs to come out with a chip on his shoulder after losing that game last week. Wasn't all on him. I mean, there was a few things that led to that, but he needs to come out hot and take care of that ball with Tracy Belton there in the backfield. Look out for him. But I think if Radeball is on point tonight, I think that's your difference, and I think that's why the Soul win.
Now, I'll tell you my difference. It's going to be the route running of the guys not named Darius Money Reynolds. We talked to Michael Bariski before the game, guy that covers the Philadelphia Soul for the World Sports Show with Charlie Flo. Does a great job, and he was telling us, hey, listen, he didn't think that Ryan McDaniel had his best game against Baltimore. And I think that's going to be big because we've highlighted Tracy Belton. But that's just the thing, Rob. We highlighted Tracy Belton, and not necessarily the defensive backfield of this 1-9 Washington Valor team. So it's very important for Ryan McDaniel and SK to be able to get in behind the defenders when necessary. If it happens to be Money Reynolds that's being guarded by Tracy Belton, then it's those guys that need to go off. And I think Radeball being able to spread the ball is very important, and you mentioned that as well. So those keys kind of coalesce, but I think being able to exploit the defensive backfield of a 9-loss team, that's going to be the key for this Philadelphia Soul team. That and guarding Greg Carr, of course, the third-year man out of Florida State and the 5th all-time leading touchdown receiver in the history of that Seminole program. So looking forward to this one here, Rob, and I hear the voice of Dave Katai. And I don't know if you know Dave Katai, but I think we talked about it last time. He is the rules expert for ESPN for college football, and he is now the head man here tonight. He's the lead official this evening
on the refereeing crew. So we'll see if he can have a go. He should know the rules.
He knows the rules.
He should know the rules. So a little bit different here in the AFL, but it's cool to have him on the field here tonight.
AFL referees, they do a great job, and certainly Dave, when I saw his name at the beginning of the season, Dave Katai, I got excited about that. You'll see him on your television screens in the fall, but hopefully your television screens here tonight as well. Tune into the television broadcast. It's also streamed online live, AFLfootball.com. It's arenafootball.com, and if you're driving in your car or just want to listen to the radio, tune in to 97.5 The Fanatic. That's 975 on your radio dial, where Joe Torti has the call. We'll leave you now and turn our attention to the field for what will be a great game here in the Arena Football League. For Rob Stott, I'm Bob Long saying so long until August the 5th when we return as the Soul take on Tampa Bay in the season finale.